Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration.
I mean, at this point, you can't even make this stuff up. Of course California is suing Donald Trump over his tariffs. Why would California stand with the United States and stand with Donald Trump as far as trying to get a fair deal for everyone? Well, let's dig into this because it's actually quite shocking, their reasoning behind this.
Today, I announced a lawsuit on behalf of the state of California suing the Trump administration. California is the largest manufacturing state in our union, one of the largest trading partners around the globe. No state will be impacted more than the state of California as it relates to the unilateral authority that's being asserted by the Trump administration to impose the largest tax increase in modern American history.
Okay, first things first. Does Gavin Newsom have a beauty filter on? Because there's a little bit of warping going on in the background. But in all seriousness, let's actually dig into what is going on right now. Now, this is where things get confusing. Here's what NBC has to say. The lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, argues that President Donald Trump doesn't have the presidential authority to unilaterally impose tariffs using the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, according to Newsom's office. Then they state, the state is asking that the court declare tariffs void and block their implementation, according to the governor's office. Now, as you can see, this is kind of a different talking point than what the governor is saying. The governor is saying that California is being impacted more, thus it's not fair that these tariffs are happening. But according to this article and according to the court document, California is trying to argue that what Donald Trump is doing is illegal. So as you can see, we kind of have two different talking points here.
Gavin Newsom says the state short on funds for its Medicaid program known as Medi-Cal. The state expanded the program to cover undocumented immigrants. The governor asked lawmakers to approve another $2.8 billion in loans on top of a $3.4 billion loan issued last week.
Now, I am not making any implications here. I'm just pointing out the timing of all of this is very notable, considering just a day ago, California, Gavin Newsom had to request a loan of $2+ billion because California mismanaged their funds or miscalculated how much money it would take to give illegal immigrants free health care.
I think from my perspective as a conservative, there really is a real battle going on in the country right now between liberalism, conservatism, and which of the two ideologies will lead the country into the next 50 to 100 years, particularly as we look at China and what their advancements and developments are in terms of usurping U.S. lead globally. And I am not certain that every single liberal institution that's an Ivy League, I don't think they've really done enough to have intellectual diversity of thought on a litany of topics. I mean, these places are really breeding grounds for some of the most abhorrent views, in my personal opinion.
The race against China is not being fought on the grounds of domestic political discourse.
I would disagree with that,
It's in the scientific labs. It's in the AI labs. It's in the research.
I think culture matters.
Oh, yeah, I think
customs of behavior matter. I think norms matter. All of those things matter in terms of the health of a society.
Michael, if China is going to lap us, economically and technologically, it is not going to be because there are 5 more Republicans at Harvard. It's going to be because there is no research.
But you know why they'll also usurp us, Abby? Because the customs of behavior, the norms, the traditions, the values that they value matter in terms of their success as a people.
That is
and we're lessening the importance of those things in our own country.
I love that conversation.
That's why conservative ideals do matter.
I love that.
Now, the timing of all of this might not be the greatest news for California, considering there are some rumors or reports, if you will, that the Trump administration is planning a pressure campaign to convince U.S. trading partners to isolate China in exchange for reduced tariffs. The administration is negotiating with more than 70 countries to secure commitments to limit their dealings with Beijing in exchange for reduced tariffs and barriers to trade, the Wall Street Journal reported. Trump administration officials will demand U.S. trade partners block Chinese shipping through their countries, prevent Chinese firms from setting up shop in their territories, and commit to eliminating the flow of cheap Chinese industrial goods into their economies, according to the Journal. And again, although this makes it seem like, man, this is all bad for California, ultimately speaking, we have to remember China is the adversary here. And if we're going to rely on cheap Chinese labor, if California wants to stick their neck out and support that, that's going to be their problem, and they need to figure out how to get on board with the rest of the United States. But this is also what the Trump administration is saying.
President Trump has said China wants to make a deal on tariffs. The president says he has a great relationship with Chinese President Xi. He's willing to speak with him directly. Why doesn't the president just pick up the phone and get this ball going?
All of the things the president just said are true. The president, as I said from the podium just a few days ago when I was up here, would be gracious if China intends to make a deal with the United States. If China continues to retaliate, it's not good for China. The United States of America is the strongest, best economy in the world, as evidenced by the more than 75 countries who have called the administration immediately to cut good deals. So the president wants to do what's right for the American people. He wants to see fair trade practices around the globe, and that's his intention and his goal.
So is he waiting for China to make the first move here?
I'm not going to comment on communications that are happening or may not be happening, or either way. We'll leave it to our national security team to get these discussions underway. And as always, in the effort of transparency, we will provide updates moving forward. But the president has made it very clear he's open to a deal with China.
Why is he optimistic that China's going to make a deal or wants to make a deal? If they're not talking, where's that optimism come from?
He's optimistic.
Okay, so I was able to find a response from a White House spokesman, Kush Desai. Now, I want to be clear, this story came out like 3 hours ago, so I don't have a response from Donald Trump or the rest of his team. So this is all we have right now. Instead of focusing on California's rampant crime, homelessness, and unaffordability, Gavin Newsom is spending his time trying to block President Trump's historic efforts to finally address the national emergency of our country's persistent goods trade deficit. So this is quite in line with how we would expect the Trump administration to tell Gavin Newsom, yo, you need to focus on your state first. Don't put the rest of the blame on everybody else, let alone this tariff situation.
Our members of Congress here, Congressman, how do you feel about all this?
I feel good about it. China has been a terrible actor, and the blame clearly lies on Congress. We've sold our country out time and time again. Both parties have. This president realizes it, and that's why the tariffs are going into place, or he's negotiating them in. And when you look at places like China that have just ripped us off considerably, our intellectual property, billions upon billions of dollars, they'll take products that are manufactured during the daytime in China, and then at night they'll put them under another label or even the same label, and then sell them on Alibaba at 30% less. So I think it's a great move.
There's no question China's a bad actor. Do you think that this is the right approach?
It's chaos. No, it's not the right approach because
our members.
Well, I feel like for years we've been getting ripped off, and why not make it fair? 0-0. And I think Trump was upfront about it. He said we're going to hurt some now.
I think some of the countries they're already starting to come around. It's going to be good. I really believe that.
You have faith in Trump?
Yes, I do.
I think he's doing the right thing. In order for us to get back where we need to be, he needs to get the money somewhere, and they're charging us. Why not charge?
Feel about the tariffs?
Now here's the icing on the cake. As California tries to appeal to Donald Trump and the rest of the world to feel bad for them, it turns out Trump voters support Trump and nobody regrets their vote.
Trump voters and how they feel. Do they regret their vote?
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories, all these articles. All the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month. What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote, Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question to Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So the stickiness with Trump voters and President Trump in this presidency, how does it compare to his first presidency?
Yeah, okay. So, I was interested in sort of a historical analogy here, sort of Does this look similar or different from back in 2017, looking at 2016? Well, in February of 2017, 4% of Trump voters say they'd shift their vote. That's actually slightly more than the 3% this time around. So, you look back, you say, okay, there's these Trump voters who really regret their vote. Historically speaking, they really don't regret their vote. And if anything, the number this time around is actually smaller than it was the first time around. And it's certainly smaller than the number we saw coming out of 2020, of course, after the events of January 6th. So the bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, the numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
What about the
So again, this is bad news because Gavin Newsom, he runs on the fundamentals of being a Democrat. And if he plans on wanting to run for the presidency, you already know every single Trump voter, conservative, Republican, and those quiet Democrats who voted for Donald Trump, who wanted the tariffs to happen, and this poll came out like today when all of these tariffs are happening. Do you really think Gavin Newsom has any chance if he wasn't trying to screw over the Trump administration and every other American who voted for these tariffs and is trying to make an appeal and say, well, you should feel bad for us because these tariffs, they're hurting California the most. So you know what? You should feel bad for us. I don't think Americans are going to buy it with all of this data and all of the recent polls coming out. So anyway, thank you guys for being here. Thank you guys for watching the videos. I'll see you guys soon. God bless and peace.